fancy intro music. Yeah! Woohoo!
Hey everybody, welcome back. Today, taking a look at the Borg arc. We're going to grade it together as a community, and I'll show you how we do that here in just a second. Yeah, I built a survey just for y'all, just for grading. And for those who are unfamiliar with how we do the grading process, I'm going to be using the rubric that myself and Archduke came up with that we talked about earlier this month. You'll see pieces of it here in the video, and we'll obviously provide a link to that. But we're going to try to get this in as what's going to be, in my opinion, very difficult. I have a level 45 account, level 29, 23, 14. I logged into all of those throughout this past month, playing primarily on my main account, the 45 one right back here, and then my level 14 account to try to get in my opinion, the best potential scope of experience that I could. Because this month definitely depended on where you are individually and level-wise for you to grade this positively or negatively. I think we need to get that out in front. Now, I will try to grade this as objectively as possible. It's the whole point of creating our grading rubric, but I also want you to contribute to this. How are you going to do that? Well, first of all, links to everything in the description of this video and in my Discord, so please join. But there will be, look at that, survey for you, pinned comment down here, as well as in my Discord, so that you can provide your input of what you think for the various pieces that we're going to go over. Now, we're like I said, the whole point of this rubric is for us to grade it and then have a undeniable grade at the very end where we can have just an honest answer with each other about whether this was valuable or not. So you see for here, I'm going to put in that I'm level 45. I am US server, and I'm going to hit next, which brings us to officers and the grading rubric for officers. There's a same rubric that we've discussed before, A, B, C, D, and F. There is a grading for a positive. You can actually give a bonus point to officers based on how good the sourcing is. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and collapse that out. Let's talk about the officers. The sourcing this month is twofold. You did not have an SMS, which we'll get into that being an event issue in a minute. But in terms of sourcing the officers, they're all immediately sourced in game, which is very rare. If you come down to the Borg tech, they're inside the solo and rare exchanges. You can get both Galinar and Hugh if level 40 plus, which I already know is going to be a big issue for a lot of players out there, and that's fine. Grade it based on that for you. But the rubric itself is based around multiple points, but primarily, are they must-haves, and is the sourcing really good? I'll go ahead and tell you that Hugh is a must-have, and the sourcing is really good for many. Now, the thing is, and people are going to bring this up, and I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. Most of the game is moving past the 30s. They're really getting into the 40s. I mean, the highest free-to-play in the game, shout out Deckix, just hit level 52, 3 days ago. So the bulk of the game is moving up, but there's still thousands, literally tens of thousands of players who are nowhere near the 40s. And those players' experience is valid. And you run into this weird mix where we're talking about the best overall group in the game. The Borg. I mean, they just do everything. The entire group as a whole is the best in the game, in my opinion. Stats, away teams, grinding for PvE, loot, protected cargo, regular mining, all of it. They do it great. You, though, just coming in is an automatic must-have below deck officer for hostile grinding. And if they run heavy hitter that includes an FKR, Federation Klingon Romulan scoring mechanic, he's definitely part of the new meta. He does not work against solar armadas or armadas, but that's fine. He's actually making your grind better and a little bit quicker with regular hostiles, and for events, a lot of value. He's a must-have in that sense. And Galinar is no slouch, though he's just not as amazing. He's still another good below-deck officer to use when grinding your Mantis and grinding your Borg, slightly lowering the time front. And I'm being very careful to not try to hype up any of this grind, because that's going to be a major problem. In fact, if you thought that the grind ad in this game this month was a problem, like the video, subscribe, and hit the follow button, because that's a big point that I've been hyping on or harping on for a while this month, and have had easily 20-ish hours of conversations with Scopely employees about grind and about this month. So feedback has definitely been given. So let's go through and say, for me personally, pulling up the grading rubric, use words, I'm going to give it an A. So even though there's only one must-have officer, I do think Galinar is good. There's immediate sourcing in the game. Now here's the thing, everybody. You can't have every officer sourced at all times, because then you would never get any officer. It'd be too much. I do agree that this should have been sourced earlier, as in letting 35 plus players, anybody who can do solo armada should be able to grind for these officers. I agree on that, and that's actually feedback that I've submitted. However, I'm going to give it an A, but not an A+. There is sourcing, and there's one must-have officer. So overall, the officers at their core are A. I mean, it's a good set, even though there's only 2. So that's my ranking. We're going to go from there and start taking a look at the features where it gets a little bit more muddied. And I think that everybody's going to agree on this. There's 2 features that rolled out. We had fleet commanders, and then we had the Borg loop. Oh man, 2 very different coins of this one. So let's take a look first at our friend Admiral Kirk and Admiral Spock. Now, the great things about this feature is these are available to all players. Starting at level 15, you get fleet commanders. I think that's a huge plus. Also, free to play. You immediately got given 1 fleet commander from the jump with sourcing for the second. In terms of a feature releasing, that's about as good as it can get. I mean, literally everybody gets to get it, everybody gets to grind it, and if you want to jump ahead of the curve, like for example, I'm stuck right now because I'm waiting on my building to level up. I can't get any further than where I currently am, and you pay. And to me, that's what the game should do. It allows you to jump ahead, but it doesn't give you a significant advantage. They're sourcing immediately. I think this is how features should roll out. Now, I do have a problem with the feature as a whole, which is that it contributes to power creep because it's nothing more than a glorified research tree, but I'm not here to spit and squabble over that. In terms of fleet commanders, for what they are and how they work and how they were sourced, I thought it was fantastic. There's a second part of this month and a second feature that got released, which was Borg solo armadas. And almost all of it I actually really do like. Before anybody says, oh, Rev, it's terrible, how can you like any piece of it? Let me give you example A. Yes, this is an example of scopely RNG, but at the same time, the fact that this is possible is fantastic. This is a triple pull of the epic loot chest by a 40 plus player. Look at the amount of officer shards. Look at the epics. Look at everything that you're getting in here. That's extreme value. This is a good loop in terms of the rewards. Now, is this as good as the Bajoran loop? In my opinion, no. The solo run here for Borg is not as lucrative as the solo is for Dominion, but it still pays out really well. The issue is the grind. The issue is not actually going out and beating the Borg spheres. We did multiple videos on screwing your Vidar, and my Borg sphere video got like 30,000 views. It's very clear players enjoyed the Armada aspect, but what they did not enjoy is the grind aspect, because an extreme amount of grind was added back into the game by forcing not only you to grind Borg, but needing 1 million a day to do everything that you have to do. So going into here, and I know y'all know this, but for the sake of the video, we're gonna cover it all. I have to go pull 1 million charged nano probes so that I can not only get my directives every day right here, which I still have to go do, but more importantly, independent credits, because you still need better sourcing for this, and faction credits. I always pull the Romulan one. So no matter what, I've got to do 1 million a day, and I can do that technically on 1 token at level 45 with a crap ton of officers and all this other, and it still takes me 20-ish minutes. A lot of players taking 2 runs to do this, you can see how that could be a problem. So how do we properly balance the grading of this feature? How egregious is this issue? Fleet Commanders is A level in terms of my opinion for sourcing and how it affects the players. But you also have this other one, which is, I would say, is a D. I would honest to God say that was a D feature. Like, this is a bad. It's so close to being good. The rewards are good. Just the added grind in a game that's already too grindy was a problem. So, where do you find balance there? I'm going to give it a C. The thing is, it has a potential to be better. It does. And actually, I'm not saying this is a promise, but one thing I can say about the dev team, game design, etc., they have heard the feedback and they have not made, I don't want to use the word promise, because I feel like they're going to be like, well, we didn't promise anything, Rev lied. They have definitely heard it and are making efforts to try to make things better. February is supposed to address that a lot. So keep that in mind. I can't make promises for them because I don't work for them. But we had game design literally in a podcast. We've had community managers here in multiple live streams. We've had a lot of activity, and we'll grade that in a bit. But I'm going to give it a C for now. And I understand 100% if you don't agree with that C. That's fine. But I'm going to give it a C. We're going to move on to the event calendar, which is another one that is so, oh man, this month is so up and down in terms of how people view it. So for me personally, as a level 45, this was an A month. This was a very good month. very, very good. If you were a mid-level or a lower-level player, it felt okay. One of the events, and I didn't even try to complete this, I didn't care. There was a monthly SMS that if you completed every single event, you got bonus rewards and a frame. Cool. And it feeds into your fleet commander. This was difficult for some players, especially those in the low 30s, because of some of the Mega Cube and Vidar related events. Not everybody felt they could complete that, so this felt a little incompletable. There was also the extreme issue for many players, myself included, that the Recruit Hue event had no SMS at all. Now, they did add another leaderboard based on player request, and they also went ahead and changed the XLB from week 1 into an SLB, both making adjustments based on player feedback. Now, again, the rewards and everything for the events this month was actually very high. I'm not sure how many of you track it, but in terms of ticket events and the actual payout for rewards and little things like independent credits is one of the highest the game has ever experienced. It was super, super high. It was very lucrative if you're a normal player in the game, and I'm very curious to see if anybody disagrees with that. Comment section down below. But in terms of ability for everybody to have the same experience, I don't agree that that existed. I don't think it was even across the board. I do agree that if you were in the 40s, it's really hard to argue this is not an A calendar. The one exception is being if you were just dead set on having an SMS with every SLB, I do agree with, and you mark it a B. So for the sake of that, I'll mark it a B, but I understand there are going to be players out there, especially in the 20s and 30s, who mark the event calendar as an F, even though the payouts are lucrative. All I can say is keep those payouts in mind, because your uncommon payouts and your material payouts and independent credit payouts were much, much higher than normal. But let's go ahead and move on to the final point, communication and stability. And I'm just going to go ahead. This one's 100% subjective. I say this in the grading rubric. How they communicate is subjective. Personally, I think this is one of their best months. You literally had a game designer in DJ's podcast. You've literally had multiple community managers come out into live streams and answer player questions directly. I think they were on 3 of my streams. And sure, people can be like, well, Rev, we don't always come to your content. Fine. They're also more active in Discord, putting out more messages than normal, letting people know about server merges multiple times, incursions. The news was always prompt. This gets an A. There are a lot of failings with this month. Sure, most of it around grind. But in terms of communication, everything, I have to give them an A. I thought they did a really good job there, and that's just my opinion. So then it rolls to this last part of the page. Now, my total grade, I ended up getting, if you add up the points, the way we do this is we take each category and has a maximum number of points. So 4 categories would be naturally 16. If you had a +1 as a bonus for like officers or a ship, that can add to it. If it wasn't a ship, or else we would have 20 points available. Because there's 16 points available, when I went through it, I was at 13 points, which is an 81%, which is a B. But if I knock one down, that's if I have one of those marked as a B. If I knock it down to a C, then it's a C grade overall, which I think is pretty fair, but it does have the potential to be better. If February fixes a lot of the problems that were introduced this month, specifically grind, I think it's better for a lot of players. But it's still going to be based on how you feel going through with this, and how you feel this was for you as a player, which is why at the very beginning of this rubric, which if you send me these results, I will give these directly to the dev team. I included player level and region, because it's not the same for everybody, and I get that. I will say that the biggest issue with this month is the biggest issue with the game. The game requires so much time, you don't have time to have fun, which makes it feel awful. But in terms of at the core of what this month gave the game, I feel like it was good if you fix the grind problem. If you don't adjust that, then it's crap, and I agree people shooting it down. But in terms of the rewards, the officers, the events, etc., all that was a good month. It's just that stupid grind factor that made things bad. Events were bad and everything else. So there you have it. There's my grade. That's what I think. I want to know what you think. Hit up the survey yourself and in the comment section below. If you don't feel like doing the survey, you don't have to, but it would help me out, and your survey results will go to the dev team. Anyway, live long and prosper. Stay safe for their Space Cowboys. Deuces, that's me. Catch you on the next one. I'm outie.
An even better outro than the intro. For the Empire and glory to your house.